Gospel according to Matthew, the 22nd chapter. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." Now all the Pharisees were gathered together. Jesus asked them a question. "What do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "How is it then that David by the Spirit calls him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet'? If David calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one was able to give him an answer, nor from that day did anyone dare to ask him any more questions. The Gospel of the Lord. I firmly believe that I was destined to be a theologian because at a very early age of the church that I went to, the place where the faith embraced me was full of warm, wonderful people, all of whom, if they had an ounce of energy within them, were willing to devote it to the cause. A retired coat hanger salesman banged out gospel hymns by ear on the piano, while a postal worker whose children were so past Sunday school age that they were teachers led the singing. And it was all headed up by an unmarried woman, a spinster in the fancy, incorrect parlance of those days, named Martha, a middle school teacher who, like her biblical namesake, was a workhorse, even though she weighed little more than a Clydesdale's hoof. The most obvious problem with the place was its name. Most of you grew up in churches with understandable names: Messiah, Bethesda, Ebenezer, St. John's, St. Mark, St. Luke, St. Matthew, clearly names right out of the Bible. Or place names like Parkview that told you what neighborhood the church was located. Or the numbering systems of the Presbyterians and Methodists, first, fourth, and the like. And then there were the faithful Swedes who gathered on the corner of Menard and Dakin at the turn of the last century and named their church Nebo. From that day until the church closed its doors, generation upon generation had to answer the question, what's a Nebo? You had to have an instant recall of biblically obscure places to come up with the answer. Nebo was the mountain on which Moses died. I am forever grateful that the founders of the church did not name it Mount Nebo. It would have been the ultimate oxymoron, because Portage Park, like this area, is as flat as the plains of Moab. Or maybe the church was aptly named because we can really never get to the promised land in this life. We can only get an occasional glimpse of it. The rest of our time, we may feel like we're wandering in the wilderness. The children of Israel, we are told, wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Listen to me now, because I'm going to tell you something stunning. While I do not know just where the boundaries of Egypt and the Promised Land were then, I do know that the distance between downtown Cairo and downtown Jerusalem is 264 miles. That's the distance between Detroit and Chicago. History tells us that the Mormon wagon trains headed westward averaged 11.25 miles per day. So simple math would tell us that the trip from Egypt to the Promised Land should not have taken more than 23.5 days. Less than a month. But instead, it took them 40 years. What was once an accepted fact now becomes a puzzle. What took them so long? Scripture tells us that they wandered in the wilderness. And I'm telling you that they spent a lot of time wandering because they spent most of their time fighting. Pick any part of the wilderness journey at random, and you will find the people complaining, bickering, and fighting. Not 3 days into their journey, they were complaining about their meager provisions and longing for Egypt. So God gives them manna, and before long they complain about that. So God sends them quail, a little something to go along with the manna. And before long they complain about that. Moses goes up to the mountain for the 10 Commandments, and they build an altar to Baal, for which God gets so angry with the people that Moses had to fight with God for their continued existence. And the point to us is simple. If you want to spend all your time fighting, it's going to take you a whole lot longer to get where you want to go than it would have any other way. Suddenly, the view from Mount Nebo is clearer. You might even be able to say to yourself down there on the plains of Moab, if your inclination is to fight rather than move forward, you can forget about making any progress. You're just going to wander in the wilderness until the day God calls you home, or wherever it is God calls you to. If there is one word you can see from the view on the top of Mount Nebo, it is the word focus. Recently, I saw the Book of Mormon on Broadway. It's coming to Chicago next year, and let me tell you right now, it is not for those who are easily offended. But with that disclaimer out of the way, it is the story of the triumph of faith. Elder Kevin Price is a gooder-than-gold Mormon whose greatest desire for his missionary trip is to be sent to Orlando, Florida. He butters up everybody for this plum assignment, but instead is sent to northern Uganda, where the outpost has not had a single convert in years. Price arrives with his many skills and his sizable ego, and there is still nothing. After witnessing the brutality of a local warlord, he suddenly begins to lose faith in his religion and decides that he's going to ask to be reassigned to Orlando. Remembering that this is a musical and these are Mormons, I'm not going to take 40 years to make my point. Price is in his own personal wilderness. He is lost, He is complaining. He is longing for home. But instead of abandoning his church, Elder Price decides to reaffirm everything his church believes as he sings, "I'm a Mormon, and I believe." It's a powerful number that even while recounting their somewhat strange history and doctrines, also reminds Price and his audience that God has a plan for all of us, and that God always has your back. In the middle of the song, he has gained enough courage to march himself into the camp of the warlord, grab the guy by the hand, and by the conclusion has the warlord sort of swaying along too. Sort of. Sometimes we wander, but sometimes our faith can cause us to do brave things. Thus, the envelope I gave you this morning. Each one has 5 magnets in them. One of those magnets you can place on your own refrigerator door. But the rest you are to share with friends. Yes, I'm asking you to do your own personal missionary journey and share your faith. I'm not shipping you off to Uganda, and there is no trip to Orlando involved. All I'm asking you to do is to give 4 magnets away to people you might think would benefit from an exposure to Christianity. And here is what makes the whole assignment so much easier than a trip to Africa. The magnets say St. J's in your PJs. All you have to do is tell people, our pastor had this brilliant, honestly spoken, had this brilliant idea to put our church on the web. You can watch at home, late at night, early in the morning, whenever you want, dress however you want. And if it interests you, come and join us. I read an article recently about how the Roman Catholic Church in southern India, concerned like their American counterparts about dwindling numbers, are encouraging their members to have more children. Believe me when I tell you, this method is infinitely cheaper. God is not calling you to lead people into the promised land. God didn't ask that of Moses, and he doesn't ask that of you. All he is asking you to do is to give them a glimpse of what it's like. As Elder Price found out in the play, you can't bring people to faith just by winning words and promises. As Moses found out, you can't drag people kicking and screaming into the promised land. But you can invite them to come up to the top of the mountain and look at the life God offers them. Discover the difference God can make and experience the love of a community that is firmly rooted in Jesus Christ. Share your magnets. Tell others that you're a Christian and you believe. Let them experience what you've experienced. Paraphrasing Elder Price, that dang it, the view from the top of Mount Nebo is pretty good. Amen.